Okay, this is Parshas Noach, the ger in Parshas Noach. What you see is the first pasuk in Parshas Noach. Ela toldos Noach, Noach ish tzadik tamim haya b'dorosav es ha'elakim hishalech Noach. These are the children of Noach. Noach was a righteous man. He was pure. He was in his generations, and he walked with God. Okay, now the sages pick up on something very interesting here. Notice it says, Ele toldos Noach. These are the children of Noach. And then the very next word it says, Noach ish tzaddik. So it gives the accolades of Noach. It gives his good deeds. And there's a midrash about that. Also, I think Rashi brings it down, that the children of a righteous person are his good deeds, are his mitzvot and his good deeds. That's one interpretation. Another interpretation, and the Midrash Rabbah is brought down, is why is Noach said twice here? Why the redundancy? Because Noach had a portion in this world and a portion in the world to come. These are good interpretations, very nice interpretations, and we can learn out from them. But I also have an interpretation, another shot that I think is very interesting, that I think you'll like. If you read Rashi on this, Rashi says over here, he says, actually it's right here, it says, in his generations, there are those among the rabbis who expound this word as praise, and then there are those, he says, the way that they expound his praise is all the more so if he had been in a generation of righteous people, he would have been even more righteous. And there are those who expound it as a deprecation of Noach and say, according to the standards of his generation, he was righteous. But if he had been in a generation of Avraham, he would not have been considered anything. Now, this is interesting and typical, and you see this a lot with a lot of different people. The more that I study Tanakh, the more that I'm realizing that almost everybody you can have a negative interpretation about, and you can have a positive interpretation about. So what's going on over here with the sages' seemingly two contrasting interpretations? So I saw by the Rebbe in the Gutnich Chumash, he says that the reason why this is because that we should not think that we should try and emulate Noach, and that's why the negative interpretations are brought down. Now, why is this? And the sages say, because what do they fault Noach with? They fault Noach, they say that he didn't pray for his generation. He didn't pray for the generation of the flood. He didn't really care about those people. So, it's interesting, though. There is a Midrash Rabbah that he was growing trees and cutting them down and building an ark in front of his house, and people would come along and he would tell them exactly what was going to happen, and they would mock him. So what do we believe? What do we hold on to? The negative interpretation or the positive interpretation, or could they both be valid? And I think two things are interesting. One is the contrast with Avraham. So what's going on over here? The contrast is made with the praying. Why? Because Avraham, we see in his life, he prayed for the Goyim. He prayed for Sodom and Gomorrah. He prayed that they shouldn't be wiped out. Now, this is the difference between Noach and Avraham, and why it's said that if Noach was in Abraham's generation, he would not have been as righteous, especially not as righteous as Avraham, because Avraham cared about everybody else and actually prayed for them, where Noach only cared about himself and saving his family and didn't pray for them, seemingly. So, I'm going to return to that point. Now, the double Noach. If we look at the life of Noach himself, if we look at the stories of Noach, the first one we have here, he's an ish tzaddik tamim. He's a perfectly righteous person, okay? Now, if we go to the other story is about him coming out of the ark and after the flood, and we all know the story. He makes a vineyard, he gets drunk, and he's in his tent naked, and he is seen by his children, and something happens, something bad happens, and they cover him up, and he has to curse his grandson. This is a very negative episode. So we have a very positive story about Noach, and now we have a very negative story about Noach. And I would submit to you that this is the duality of Noach, and this is also another reason for the double Noach, Noach. It was almost like there were two different Noachs. There was the righteous Noach, and then there was the non-righteous Noach. And this goes on B'nai Noach, on the children of Noach, because the same thing is brought down by the Rambam, and he says that there are those B'nai Noach who keep the Sheva Mitzvot al pi seichel, because they know it's good for them. They know that if they rob somebody, that person is going to come after them for revenge, and they're going to have all kinds of problems, and it's not going to be good for them. So they keep the Sheva Mitzvot out of selfishness, out of ego, because it's good for them that they keep the Sheva Mitzvot. Then there's the B'nai Noach who keeps the Sheva Mitzvot because he understands that it was given to him from Moshe Bahar Sinai, and that it was ratified, the Torah was ratified, the Sheva Mitzvot. And he believes in the sages darshaning, and they expounded from 7 words in one pasuk, all 7 of the mitzvahs. So he believes these things, and Rambam says that he has a chelek olam haba, he has a portion in the world to come. Where the B'nai Noach who keeps the mitzvot al pi seichel does not have a portion in the world to come. So we see this dichotomy even in the B'nai Noach themselves, the holy and the unholy side. The B'nai Noach who keeps Sheva Mitzvot because he knows it's from Moshe, it was called a Chasidei Umas Ha'olam. He's a Chassid. So, now, that even goes for the Ger. Now, this is where the Ger comes in. The Ger also has a dichotomy. He also has a holy and an unholy side. There's the Ger Tzedek, which is a convert to Judaism, who's acknowledged as a member of the nation. And then there's the Ger Toshav, who is a Goy. He's a non-Jew. And sometimes his dinim are like a Jew's, and sometimes they're not. It's brought down in Makos, Masechta Makos, that he can run to a Ir Michla if he kills another Ger Toshav. If he kills a Jew, he has a death penalty. He doesn't get to run to a Ir Michla. So we see there that there's 2 types of Gerim. There's the holy and the unholy type. And even amongst the Ger Tzedek, there's those that convert for altruistic motives, and there's those that convert for bishvil davar, for some other motive. And so, what is the summation of all of this? Basically, we've seen the dichotomy of Noach. We've seen the dichotomy of the 2 Noachs. We've seen the dichotomy of the B'nai Noach, and we've seen the dichotomy of the Ger. Now, it's contrasted with the first Jew. Noach is contrasted with the first Jew, Avraham. So what's the whole idea here? Is you have a tzaddik who's a non-Jew, and you have a tzaddik who's considered a Jew. The difference between the two is the Jewish tzaddik, Avraham, prayed and cared about the world and other people. The Goyish tzaddik, Noach, didn't pray and didn't care so much about the generation of the flood. And that is the difference. And that is what we are called to as Jews. We are called to be a light unto the nations. We're called to care about them. We're called to love them. And we're called to come alongside of them and help them out. And I will bring all these points out and more as we keep going. Next parsha will be Lech Lecha, and we'll deal with Avraham. Thanks for listening. This has been the Ger in every parsha.